by using a service from a cloud provider, we finally hid away the nasty parts of open source. That was a quote. On a company using open source, there are some parts that you don't really would like to know, and if you really read a small print on some open source, it's not that easy always to use as a company. But if the cloud provider use, let's say, Red Hat for all their handling of their clusters, you don't have to care as an end user because it's hidden behind the cloud provider. And that was a nice new way of looking at things that the cloud provider actually does. The cloud provider cares, of course, with their relation with the different licenses and they have, but you are just buying the final service that is provided by the cloud provider. You didn't make a contract with Red Hat to use this cloud provider. And that was interesting. I think it's
come back to this more legal commentary on data, and of course making sure that one can get the data out in some ordered form from a class. That is looks yes, it looks.
Here's the ones and here's the zeros.
Yes. Some better, yeah. We only need the ones because the zeros we know.
Empty space.
Yeah. So no, but seriously, if going back to my example there, let's say we sign up a contract here for all the Finnish universities to use a cloud service provider, and they store all the research data there. I mean, we are easily talking here about petabytes and tens of hundreds of petabytes soon. So it becomes practically not simple to get the data out, even if we want to, with any measure. So here we're talking really about vendor lock-in, and from pure practical reasons, even though we have maybe arranged it in some way, the only way to get it out is physically, maybe put disks on a trailer and move them out of there. So there we enter into another space, because one should remember also, this is part of the business model of cloud computing for these companies. I mean, to build the really big data centers, get all the scale benefits of the scale, and really aggregate data there. And because these centers the data centers are really optimized, all the hardware and systems there, they are optimized to turn around these big heaps of data. And this is the whole business idea. So the idea is to aggregate data there. But we must, as customers, then understand what it means. Not only now, it's very handy and practical, but what does it mean in the future, where this data just grows and grows and grows, because it will not decrease.
I remember a discussion a few years ago about another kind of vendor lock-in, and that is what happens if there's a war between some Asian countries. We won't get any hardware to our computers because we don't have any factories in Europe, and maybe some in US. And to build a factory with the knowledge takes us a long time. So we would be out of computers at some degree for quite long. So we have already made some decisions here. And what happens now if we suddenly start to use cloud providers from outside Europe only, and then there is some problem with on the political level when suddenly all our scientific data is somewhere else, and let's start with paper and pen again, and I don't know. But there's some other discussion that's really high level but interesting. I think I didn't hear much about.
As a short comment, I don't think you have to be a too suspicious of the U.S. government to make a conclusions that any cloud service servers that are located in the U.S. They will have some kind of backdoor access by the U.S. government. There are lots of articles, legal articles, and in other fields showing that U.S. government has requested such backdoors from a number of vendors already, and they will do it in the future. And there is no contractual means to avoid it. It doesn't matter what your agreement says. The U.S. government will bypass that agreement and say that we don't care about your agreements, we will do it anyways, and your service provider can't help it. Yeah, it's the US Patriot Act that allows all this after the 9/11.
And as Swede, I can mention that if your data pass through Sweden, it's I'm sorry about that.
Fujitsu point of view, in many cases that's what the customer requires. They're requiring the right to do auditing and have third party with them to audit our services whenever they choose to. That's normal and happens all the time.
For Microsoft services, for the most part, the way they work is that we say that these services are delivered following these and these and these policies, which usually are based on some set of international standards. And then those policies are actually audited by a third party, one or several third party auditors. And then you will be able to have access to those audit reports. Due to the nature that most of the services that we provide, we cannot, simply for resource and time constraints, we cannot give everybody the right to come and do their individual audits. What we do is we rely on third parties to audit them, and then you kind of rely on those third party audit reports.
So in the research environment, this is one specific thing here, and that is if we provide a computing service to a customer that contains a specific algorithm, you are doing image analysis or a sort or something, whatever it is, there is typically a request from the research customer to know if this algorithm, how it is implemented, is it actually implemented in the correct way to the last bit or not. So here it is about access to the source code to analyze this, or to at least to be able to do it. So that's why we also very much like the open source model for these kind of services and what we adapt and use there. So this is a very special case, but it is there really.
If we look at typical IT service agreements that companies typically conclude with service providers, we always try to include an audit clause there. So and usually they are accepted as Fujitsu example shows. However, when it comes to cloud services, having audit is sometimes quite impractical or even impossible if you think about a service provider like Microsoft or Google that could have service centers around Europe or around the world, and how do you audit it? It's not very practical, and I think this kind of certification by independent third-party auditors based on international standards is the way forward here, and the way this kind of some kind of certainty on the compliance with requirements is obtained. One should remember that that while it's most likely true that, for example, Microsoft services are probably more secure in practice than many of the locally hosted environments where there is one IT guy kind of trying to maintain the data security. I think Microsoft has one division of people working on it. But from the customer point of view, it's not enough that you say that, well, they probably are more data secure because if you have legal requirements to make sure that your service data is handled in a proper way, you have to have some documentation on it. You have to have some kind of way to say that, yes, I've done my duty. I have made sure that they have all these systems in place. And it's not enough to say that, well, Microsoft is all right. So I think this is the best way forward, having this kind of international standards and audits and reference to those in the deals. But we haven't seen a lot of those used in the agreement so far, so I think this is the way forward in the future. But so far we haven't seen them a lot.
not much to add. I would like to add a wish, and that's if you look at security, there is a very nice what is an effort from something called the Cloud Security Alliance. People from all over, it's US, there's a SNIA in Europe, companies who together try to figure out what's specific with cloud security compared to normal IT security, what to think about when you go to the cloud, what to expect, what to really ask for, and how to think. I like it very much. It has a best practices. So you can look at 10 best practices, and then there's another document of all the way through how to think about things. What I would like to see is an SLA best practices. Maybe there is. I didn't find it yet. Something that you legal people can just agree, this is a typical SLA you could expect from a small company using this kind of cloud services, and of course together with some people like CSA or whoever. That would be nice. That would save a lot of money. Okay, not your money, but our money.